There's a creator that I think her name is Adri, A-D-R-I. I'm sorry. I looked up your name. I couldn't find any videos where you were saying your name. It's called Freddie Gibbs, Alfredo, Cooking for the Culture. And I watched maybe the first couple seconds of it, and then I realized she was doing a deep dive on Alfredo and Freddie Gibbs while she's cooking Alfredo. As somebody who's from Indiana, who has been following Freddie Gibbs' career for a very long time, I want to watch this. I'm Sean, Lonegevity with Bringing Down the Band and the New Old Heads podcast, and this is my Unpack series where I typically go deeper on New Old Heads segments, but I've expanded and now I'm unpacking other videos in relation to the same type of thing. With that being said, if you want to check out our discussion on Freddie Gibbs' Alfredo 2, check out the New Old Heads podcast, episode 446. But yeah, let's watch this and kind of get into it.
We're back with another episode of Cooking for the Culture, and today we're going to talk about Freddie Gibbs and Make Alfredo. For those of you who don't know, Freddie Gibbs is my favorite current rapper, and I do identify as the president of the Girls for Gibbs Association, so this should be fun. Cities like New York, LA, and Atlanta are credited with being the birthplace of many rap icons, but who would have thought that one of the hardest MCs of the past decade would be from Gary, Indiana? Now, I don't know much about Indiana at all, especially not Gary specifically, no offense, but I've discovered that it's known for two important things. One, the Jackson 5 was born there. And in 1993, the city's murder rate was one of, if not the highest in the nation, making it the murder capital, where they murder for capital. So this provides some context for what life was like.
Shouts to Jay-Z references. It's also really big in the steel industry.
For Frederick Jamel Tipton, who we now know as Freddie Gibbs. He tried taking multiple different paths, including...
Yeah, my dad, when I grew up, and lived with my dad, but he lived in the region. He lived in Gary when I was young. I think Maryville, then Valparaiso, then Portage for a long time, but he lived in that type of area, so I have connections to some degree in that area, outside of just knowing people that are from there.
College football and the army, but drugs, crime, and hustling always ended up getting in the way. But luckily, he was friends with a producer named Finger Roll, who owned a studio, apparently the only studio in the city. Plenty of places in the Midwest did have a presence in hip-hop at the time, with rappers like Kanye, Nelly, and Bone Thugs and Harmony representing the region. Gary, Indiana was just not one of those places.
I wonder if that was a bar that she just said when she said the region. I don't know. If not, it was an entendre without knowing it.
Until 2003, when Freddie dropped his first mixtape, Full Metal Jacket. A lot of this project is him rapping over popular songs like Dipset Anthem and You Don't Know.
You may have seen we talk about Gibbs a lot on the New Old Heads, but like Gibbs went to Ball State at the same time that Major 7th went to Ball State, who's on the podcast. You know, I think they were in the same dorms even. Major 7th has worked with Gibbs on stuff in the past. On a Fake Shore Drive mixtape. He produced a record called On Our Own with Mickey Halstead.
Rap niggas will tell you about the purse, but they won't tell you about the lost. Nobody gonna give it to me, I'm gonna take it until I fade away, man.
One thing that's pretty consistent throughout Freddie Gibbs' entire discography is he makes a lot of references to the legends that came before him. I think that really should be appreciated. I genuinely believe that the best rappers are the ones that have an authentic love for hip-hop, and he demonstrates that by paying homage so frequently. Like in both of the mixtapes that he dropped in 2009, the titles are a nod to Lauryn Hill and Outkast putting a spin on their classic album. But the music itself is still true to his identity as artist. It's aggressive and highly narrative-focused with a lot of influence from the Midwest and the South. Freddie raps like a machine gun. It's very powerful, but concise. Before those mixtapes, he was briefly signed to Interscope.
He is. The one criticism I've always had of Gibbs, even though it's like his own style, and I think the way that he raps is extremely important to like his allure in a way, is that he's not extremely technical. Like he's technical in the sense of like he'll say syllables and patterns in a particular type of way, but his delivery of how he says stuff a lot of times kind of sounds sloppy. Like it kind of sounds sloppy, like it was a first take. Like I've been in studio sessions where I'd be like, hey, that was sloppy. Go back in and make that a little cleaner. And when I listen to Gibbs stuff, like almost across the board, it almost sounds like they're one takes and he's just like, nah, it feels the way it needs to. I'm not going to redo it. Just a random sidebar.
Where he was connected with producers like Just Blaze.
And I say that to say that like, I think it's a benefit that he does it that way.
Alchemist, but he was dropped about a year later when the man that signed him left the label. This almost made him stop rapping entirely and he had to return back to hustling, but luckily he kept putting out music by himself without the backing of a label. Eventually he signed to Jeezy's label CTE World in 2011. He didn't stay with that label for very long either.
And before that, he was dropping a lot of mixtapes. He was doing a lot of stuff in the Chicago scene. This is a time where I was like frequenting Chicago a lot. He was really buzzing in Chicago quite a bit at this time. This is also like the heart, like blog era. Previous to him signing to CTE, like He was all over the place with like records and features and stuff like that too.
And his departure did cause a little bit of turbulence between the two, but we'll get into that later. But while he was working with J-Z, one of the mixtapes that he dropped was Cold Day in Hell, and that was a bit of a turning point in his career. He had started to get more attention from major publications, and he had already been on the XXL freshman class of 2010. This is also the very first project that I heard from him, and to this day, Natural High is one of my favorite songs from him. He kept that momentum going by dropping.
Yeah, and the Fake Shore mixtape that I'm talking about actually, or it's called The Breakout. I'll put it up on the screen. Maybe I'll put a link in the thing, but because it's Major Seventh's, he actually did an entire Chicago mixtape with Fake Shore Drive. Shouts to Fake Shore Drive. Andrew Barber, who runs that, is actually somebody who went to high school with myself and Major Seventh. It's kind of funny. Like, we grew up in Anderson, Indiana, which is a small random place. So they linked up in Chicago. They did a pretty big Chicago mixtape way back in the day. Really solid. Actually, I have a bonus cut on there. It's a Hinks Jones record. It's produced by another Chicago producer. Shouts to the homie Il Brown, featuring the homie Poppy Amon from Chicago.
A Gangsta Grills mixtape called Babyface Killa about a year after that. For those that don't know why that's significant, the Gangsta Grills mixtapes were a series hosted by DJ Drama, who was very prominent during that time. The mixtape era was a very important moment in hip-hop history, so if you're interested in the full video on that topic, just let me know in the comments. That pretty much sums up the highlights of Freddie's mixtape era, but let me say this. I've seen people say on the internet that Freddie gets carried by beats and that without major producer collaborations that he would be nobody. And there's so much wrong with that statement, but why would you dismiss somebody's talent just because they work with other talented people? By that logic, a lot of y'all's favorite rappers really ain't shit either. Come on.
That's facts.
Do these shrimp look medium to you? My pinky for reference. I feel like these shrimp are on Ozempic. These are not medium. Anyways, Freddie Gibbs has always been rapping at a pretty high level. A lot of y'all just haven't listened to it. Most rap listeners are familiar with Freddie's bigger producer collabs and maybe a couple other studio albums, but if you haven't, I highly suggest going back to his earlier work because it really deepens your appreciation for him as a rapper. We're gonna talk more about what exactly his strengths are, but let's get into the albums first. 2 months after Freddie left CTE, he dropped his debut, Evil Seeds Grow Naturally, under his own label under the same name. Compared to his pre-existing work, this album was not really as versatile. And
He's had a lot of fallouts with a lot of those people. And the people that, well, if you know, you know.
also a lot more dark and intense. He also took some shots at Jeezy in addition to calling him out in interviews. So while all this other stuff was happening, Freddie had something life-changing in the works. It changed my life, at least. He was connected to the one and only Madlib through his manager Lambo. Quick disclaimer, I've never used this pasta attachment before, but I'm gonna try my best. Madlib gave Freddie 8 CDs full of beats, and over the course of 3 years, he recorded what's arguably the most important body of work in Freddie's entire discography, Pinata. It was originally called Cocaine Pinata based off of some weird dream that Freddie had, and he described it as a gangster blaxploitation film on wax.
Another interesting tidbit about this, that just some random stuff that I just randomly know. Freddie's DJ at the time, I believe his tour DJ was DJ Izzo. I don't know him personally, but he used to be in a DJ duo with one of my homies, DJ Castle, Bounce Castle. He DJ'd for me down in the first time we played A3C Hip Hop Festival in Atlanta. But they used to be in a DJ duo called Classy Hand Favors, which I always thought was an amazing name. I don't know for a fact, but there are a couple features on that first Pinata record where there had to have been a connection via Izzo. But anyways.
Is it working? Technically this works, but I kind of hate it. This is what I get for trying some new shit. In a literal sense, there are snippets from blaxploitation films and the outros and interludes in the album, but that doesn't really describe the energy of the album. But Freddie's gritty reality rap topically mirrors that of blaxploitation films, and Madlib's dynamic production gives it that cinematic feel overall. You get songs like Deeper that are super sentimental and reflective, and then you have songs like Harold's where he orders some chicken. The duality of man. I appreciate that a decent amount of his songs are cohesive ideas and not just a collection of one-liners. There's nothing wrong with occasionally using the non sequitur approach, but in order to have the title of a great lyricist, you're gonna have to do a little bit more than just rapping in bullet points. Shame and High are really good examples of this, and Real, which is a diss track towards Jeezy. I think one of the things that makes this album so memorable is that it demonstrates Freddie's complexity and ability to work with different soundscapes. Gibbs is definitely not the first gangster rapper to try more experimental production, but I feel like him and Madlib match each other's energy so well that they set a new standard for a rapper-producer collab.
It was a very big time. I remember even for me, because I was a fan of Gibbs, obviously having personal connections to him to some degree, and watching his rise, as somebody who's from, again, I'm from the Midwest, I'm from Indiana. I grew up in Anderson, literally a town away, like I was saying, is where Ball State is, where he went to college, even though he's from Gary. But I'm just saying, all these little connections, I've been following Gibbs's career for a long time. Shouts to Jay Diff on the podcast. I think he mentioned one time that the first time that he heard Gibbs, he was at Indiana Black Expo handing out free mixtapes, way back in the day or something. So it's I've been rooting for Gibbs for a long time, and I had seen him rap on different style of production, even though he typically he was kind of more known to kind of rap on the trap style-esque production. Every time I heard him kind of venture away from that, I was like, ooh, this is real dope. And so like I wasn't 100% shocked as a lot of people were when 𝗕𝗏𝗪 dropped. I was like, he finally got in that bag with the right person, and it just kind of like opened up this entirety of this whole new type of like cult following around him. It's kind of like the Run the Jewels effect with Killer Mike and LP, in the sense of how like it took two completely kind of separate worlds in a way, and kind of like the fan bases like crashed together. And it was kind of like the same thing with Gibbs and Madlib, because most people did not really, especially because he was more known for like the Jeezy stuff and all the stuff that was going on there, even though that was like my least favorite era from him probably. I honestly didn't think it was a good match personally, and he kind of proved that it actually wasn't, but I'm happy they're cool with each other now or whatever. But like musically, I didn't think, like, to me it was just like Gibbs leaning into what he's always done. But when he stepped outside of himself a little bit and did the Madlib stuff, I was like, you sound really good over this stuff. Do more of this. And he really, I don't want to necessarily say he ushered in a whole era of this, but it was just a good marriage.
Pretty much everything I just said also applies to their second collab album, Bandana. Bandana is essentially a more refined 𝗕𝗏𝗪. I think 𝗕𝗏𝗪 has higher highs, but Bandana is more consistent, if that makes sense. The features are a little bit stronger on Bandana, but
I like 𝗕𝗏𝗪 way more.
𝗕𝗏𝗪 also has an insane posse cut. Both of them sound phenomenal. Obviously, they're
That insane posse cut is the one that's featuring a handful of people. I think Mac Miller's on it. Shouts to 𝗕𝗏𝗪. I got a record with 𝗕𝗏𝗪 called "Don't Be an Asshole." He's super talented artist if you're not familiar with him. But that posse cut was super dope. But like the Bandana record was just, it was good. It was really good actually, but it didn't quite hit the same as 𝗕𝗏𝗪 did.
Madlib beats, but I think Bandana has some of the best production that Freddie has ever touched. I would do anything to hear 𝗕𝗪𝗪 for the first time again. There's allegedly a third Freddie Gibbs and Madlib collab called Montana. Don't hold your breath because we've been waiting for a minute, but if it does come, I will be eternally grateful. Freddie,
I do have to mention, shouts to my guy 𝗕𝗪𝗡, who I mentioned earlier, who produced a record. He's produced a couple records. We've done a couple songs together. But like Madlib definitely directly used 𝗕𝗪𝗡's sound kit without giving him any type of credit on it, on half man, half main, half cocaine. That first beat where it doesn't sound like Madlib is because it's not Madlib. He literally, all praise it. We've talked about this in depth on the New Old Heads. We actually had 𝗕𝗪𝗡 on to talk about it, but like he kind of stole somebody's work and didn't give him credit for it. But that's why that record sounds the way that it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, this right here.
Yeah.
This is a direct 𝗕𝗪𝗡 drum kit. Didn't chop it up or anything. Took directly from it. Love the record. But, shouts to my homie 𝗕𝗪𝗡. He's actually, Hit Boy stole from him 2 or 3 different times as well. It's a snaky business. Rule 4080. Anyway, that's besides the point. Let's get back to the video here.
I dropped a couple other albums between 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗡 and Bandana too. There's Shadow of a Doubt, You Only Live Twice. He has a self-titled album that again continues to
You Only Live Twice is probably my favorite Gibbs project. That one and 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗡. We talked about that on episode 446 of the New Old Heads.
Theme of modeling his cover art over other classic albums, and a collaboration with Currency and Alchemist called Fetty. I wanted so badly to sneak in a Fetty, 𝗕𝗎, Alfredo joke. They're all bad, so just pretend I
Fetty, here's a hot take for all the Currency lovers. Fetty would have been better without Currency.
didn't say anything. Freddie has worked with a variety of different artists and explored so many different styles, but my personal favorite Freddie Gibbs album, and honestly, one of my favorite albums of all time, any genre, is Alfredo. I love this album so much that for my 25th birthday, I had an Alfredo-themed dinner party. So yeah, I'm a little bit biased. If 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗡 is blaxploitation, then Alfredo is a mafioso film. Aside from the hand on the cover being the Godfather logo, most of the movie references made throughout the album are actually to black mobsters specifically. So instead of Tony Soprano or Don Vito being the lead, it's Frank Lucas and Bumpy Johnson. Alfredo is a modern spin on the mafioso style that was popularized by legends like Kool G Rap and Raekwon. Many parts of it are rugged, dark, and kind of evil sounding, honestly, but The Alchemist balances that out with songs like Scotty Beam that are elegant and really pretty. I can make a whole video talking about hip-hop's fascination with the mafia, but I think Alfredo is one of the most well-executed amalgamations of black culture and La Cosa Nostra. Quick cooking tip, if you ever are fresh Parmesan, don't throw away the rinds, keep them in the freezer, and then you can use them when you make sauce, soup, all types of things. One thing that I want to make abundantly clear is Freddie Gibbs is not a style over substance type of rapper. He doesn't solely rely on aesthetics. He be rapping his ass off. I think storytelling and creative wordplay are definitely his strong suits, but his delivery is really what makes him stand out. The way he switches cadences and flows so effortlessly on any type of beat is honestly a skill that a lot of rappers don't have.
But I'll also say, as somebody who's been listening to Freddie Gibbs for as long as he has, this is where I'll disagree a little bit, because he sounds the same on everything. Like, even though he does flip his style up because of just the inherent nature of how he raps, sure, he switches his delivery up in different particular types of ways. He goes fast, slow, all this other stuff, but he kind of does the same thing every single time. And I don't want to say that it gets boring or monotonous, because it doesn't to me. Shouts to Read My Soul. We did a reaction to him saying that Freddie Gibbs music is boring, and we disagree, but I like Freddie. But he kind of raps the same on everything. Let's just be real. He kind of raps the same on everything. And he does switch his cadence up and all this other stuff, but like, you know what you're going to get from Freddie Gibbs. I actually think it's one of the more alluring parts about him is like, he's really good at what he does, and he doesn't switch it up too much to where like he ostracizes his fan base or anything like that, you know? So I'd push back a little bit on that, but you know.
How much delivery and flow matters really just depends on the individual person and what you value as a listener. But in my opinion, if you're not going to have a strong presence on a song, you might as well be doing spoken word. I say all that to say this video was being recorded just a few days before the release of Alfredo 2, and I am so excited. Like, the announcement of this album single-handedly brought me out of a 4-month YouTube hiatus. So if you have them back, thank Freddie and Alchemist. Based on the album cover and the short film that they put out so far to accompany the album rollout, I think this album is going to be less based on the Italian mafia and more on the Japanese mafia, also known as the Yakuza. Similar to the first one, I'm anticipating a lot of...
When did she drop this? July 25th. Oh, so she dropped this. Oh, same day. Okay, so it's kind of like just a history of it. I thought she was going to get into Alfredo a little bit, but looks like not, but that's okay.
References to Yakuza films, but specifically ones that also include black characters, like the 2001 film Brother. And maybe even some samples from Japanese producers like 𝗕𝗔𝗡𝗪, aka the godfather of lo-fi. I really appreciate how intentional Freddie is with visuals and thematic cohesion. The small details really do add so much. Like in his 2022 album, Soul Sold Separately.
I have, as a producer who was making lo-fi before lo-fi was a name, I have a lot of thoughts on that, but you know, fair enough.
The casino theme that's woven throughout the project is already pretty unique, but it also has a bit of a double meaning because it speaks to the different risks and gambles that he took to get to where he is now. You Only Live Twice and You Only Die Once are kind of like a double concept album. In one, he uses the Black Jesus imagery to kind of represent him resurrecting from difficult situations, specifically him being charged and later acquitted of assault charges. And in the follow-up, he's having conversations with the devil where he kind of reconciles with the fact that he's in some ways still fighting the same demons, just in a different format. I was gonna try to rank all of his albums, but the process was starting to stress me out, so the best I can give you is a top 5. Number 1 is definitely Alfredo, but 𝗕𝗏𝗪 is a very close second. Number 3 is Bandana, then You Only Die Once, and then maybe Freddie, the self-titled album.
I always butcher. It's funny she like messed that up because I always mess up You Only Live Once as well. I literally did last week on the show. That's the brother tonight because he corrected me.
I want to say Cold Day in Hell, but nostalgia is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. If you have a different ranking, I'd love to hear the reasoning why. I think when an artist has a highly debatable magnum opus, it always leads to some really great discussion.
Yeah, I think to me, it's I like You Only Live Twice. How did I already forget it? I was started with You Only Live Twice as my favorite one. And the reason why I like it the most is just because it's the first thing he dropped after he got out of like prison overseas. And I feel like he was just a little bit more personal on it. And that's the one very small criticism that I would give about Gibbs is like, it's not that he's not personal, but he he doesn't let you in very much. Like he kind of does in his own kind of like movie-scape type of ways. Like you can view it, but it doesn't feel like super personal. But that, to me, that's the closest that I got from that. But I would do that. And then I would probably do 𝗕𝗏𝗪. And then after 𝗕𝗏𝗪, I might do Alfredo 2. But then everything else is just like really good. Like I really like Soul Sold Separately. So, I like that front to back. Alfredo's really good. Bandana's really good. Yeah, I don't know. I can only give you a 3.
As you can see, I tend to prefer his more collaborative works. He does have a good track record of...
I think that's another piece about Freddie. When one thing that he is probably accidentally fell, like Bandana and 𝗕𝗏𝗪 are so good because of the cohesiveness of him working with one producer in Madlib. Talk about this all the time. Me and Major 7 talk about this all the time on the podcast. But Alfredo is him and Alchemist. Fetty, one soundscape. And that allows an artist to really kind of go a little bit deeper into the aesthetic of what that is a little bit. Not to say that like multi-producer projects are not good or anything like that, you know, but there's something to be said about that.
Working with other people. He just also ironically has a history of being hot-headed and beefing with pretty much anybody. So far, J-Zine has been the only rapper to elicit a proper diss track from Freddie, but he has gone back and forth with Gunna, 𝗕𝗥𝗪𝗡𝗚. He took some shots at Lil Wayne on 𝗕𝗥𝗪𝗡. The most disappointing of all his fallouts is definitely the one with Benny the Butcher, because Frank Lucas and One Way Flight are some of the best songs in both of their discographies. A Gibbs Griselda album would feed me for generations, but...
And this is, again, something... We literally mentioned this on episode 446 last week. Yeah, it sucks that they're beefing because they could make some really great music together.
Probably never get it. I love Freddie. I really, truly do. But I would appreciate if you put that damn phone down. Realistically, most of my favorite rappers were violent criminals at some point and have made entire albums detailing all the ways in which they've been a bad person. So Freddie being a messy Gemini is the least of my concerns. I say all that to say I'm really looking forward to Alfredo too.
Yeah, and also there's the other, like, how much of it is actually... Anyways.
By the time this video drops, I'll probably listen to it at least 5 times, if not more. If you follow me on TikTok, look out for a review. I'll definitely be posting one on there. Even if it doesn't top the original Alfredo, I can always count on Freddie for sharp lyricism, lots of personality, and an amazing ear for beats, so I think we're gonna be eating good. And speaking of eating good, ta-da! Aren't these breadsticks the cutest thing you've ever seen in your life? I hope they're good.
Looks good. Yeah, shouts to... Again, I'm sorry, I couldn't find anything to know how to pronounce your name, but shouts to 𝗕𝗪𝗪𝗓. Really cool video, a breakdown of Freddie Gibbs. I hope you guys have enjoyed this breakdown of my further analysis on this stuff as well. Again, this is Unpacked with Lonegevity. Longevity is me. I'm a part of the New Old Heads podcast. We've been doing our podcast every single week since 2016. Since literally, it's what marks time. Our very first episode was called Drake is a Pop Star, and it was literally... either the week before or the week of Donald Trump getting elected in 2016. Yeah, kind of pivoted our early content to be heavy political in a way. But anyways, if you want to support the show, it's patreon.com/newoldheads. You can even become a free member just to get notifications of when we go live. But if you want to become a $5 member on Patreon, yeah, you get all of our 2-hour uncut episodes. So check that out if you're interested. We also have a $10 option for if you want to be involved in vinyl raffles that we do a couple times a year. We have a partnership with Indie City and Vinyl, which is a really dope record store locally, and which we are actually going to be doing some pretty cool things with when they open their new space. So, but yeah, I go over and handpick some vinyl from them, and then we raffle it off to our Patreon members that are on our $10 option. So one winner a month. But anyways, thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.